So, guys, some people are talking about this online. Do you guys think that Tony Khan should be replaced, or should he be stepped down? Should he be stepped down from AEW? And my answer is both yes and no. And I think that the thing that really needs to happen is that he really needs to have like a big booking committee. Like I do think that he needs to have Brian Danielson. He also needs to have Dustin Rhodes, and I also think that maybe on the roster he could have like Mark Henry and a few other people. He should keep Jeff Jarrett out of this. 'Cause I know like some people like say like Jeff Jarrett was not good of a booker in TNA wrestling because obviously he made things about himself really. But I do think that that needs to be like the next step really. And then something like okay, well Brian Danielson. He like I remember like Tony Khan was saying something like when Brian Danielson if something happens to Tony Khan, then Brian Danielson will be like running AEW. So I really think that for a lot of like the veteran wrestlers, they should really step up and start booking things in AEW. And then also you can even like say like Christian and Edge, if they want to retire in a couple of years, or if Sting needs some money, he can do that really, or even like Ric Flair. But I really think then that's what they really need is more of a booking committee. And then Tony Khan has to kind of be like, okay, well, let's do something like this. Let's say, okay, you have all these people, and then you say, okay, Brian Danielson, he'll book ROH. You have Dustin Rhodes book, the world heavyweight champ. Dustin Rhodes will be booking, you know, um, five wrestlers in AEW, no, five wrestlers in AEW that Tony Khan wants to make them into big stars. So what would happen if it's like, say, I would say, like, let's say he says something like, okay, well, Sorb Strickland, we want him to be a big star. We also want the Young Bucks to be a really big heel faction. How would you book that? We want Osprey to be a big deal. We want Mercedes Moné and Okada to be a big deal, and Daniel Garcia. So you have six people, and 1 year from now, I want them to be big stars. How are you going to do that, Dustin Rhodes? Can you help me with the booking? And then you have Mark Henry there, and he says, okay, well, we have an issue with people like Wardlow and Powerhouse Hobbs, and a couple of, and like Lance Archer and a couple other people who are big men, Brian Cage as well. How do you book the big men in the company? And we all have to kind of intertwine and just make sure we're telling a good story. And then also, we got to tell the boys. And then also you have Ric Flair helping you with booking the heavyweight division. And then they're kind of like, okay, well, here's the plan. This is what we want to do months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now, 24, 48 months. And the whole point of it is really that, this company needs to have a long-term vision, that Tony Khan cannot run the empire. The same way you look at Vince McMahon, and he was doing a lot of just taking things over, really. And the problem is that if you run something so big, you don't have time to sleep, you will get fatigued, and then ultimately you're not going to care about it as much, really, because honestly, that's just not sustainable for one person. And I think that also they have to say things like, okay, well, since we care about making a better direction, really, and things are going to accelerate because we are working towards something. The next couple months, if we have a better and compelling show, if the ratings don't change, we still got to keep it. And if the quality, people are saying, okay, well, this is getting better, that's getting better, you are going to see results, really. So I really just think that that's the big thing. I think that if Tony Khan does not want to expand to other people that could actually help him make a better show, then he really needs to step down. He's not the right person. But I really think the issue is that he definitely needs to really think about the people that he's around. And then also he should find the right people that can actually help him, make a better show, really. Because honestly, the things that he's doing are not working. I think there's a lot of picking and choosing. Like, obviously, the thing that he did with Sting was excellent, but obviously he cared a lot about Sting. But the thing he's doing with Samoa Joe and Swerve is not working in the sense that he's taken a left turn and focused more on CM Punk and responding to that, But I would have to say that while that's a very severe issue, um, that's not the biggest issue in the world, really. That's not a defining factor. The defining factor is really that the ratings are going down, that he's spending all these money on new wrestlers, and that's not really pop the rating. He has to utilize them to their best potential. The other thing is that he needs to have people who can write wrestling and know how to share what they've learned. And then also too, that's good because if you meet wrestlers backstage who are like, no, F it, I want to do my own thing, and they're not improving, they're not getting better, then you have to start nixing those people because if they're not willing to improve, they're not willing to go to the next step, they're not willing to listen to good advice really, and they're just like, I want to do my art, and their art is not working. Why would you keep somebody? Why would you keep all those contracts? You need to fire the people who don't want to, better themselves. You need people that can that can be on certain that can work on certain things, and that's their department. Like for right now, Brian Danielson should really be the ROH person and have like a few other people with him. I think that Ric Flair could be the heavyweight. Ric Flair, Edge, and Tony Khan could be like the heavyweight pitcher. And then you could have maybe the Hardys do the tag team stuff. I'm not sure who you can have for a women's division. I would just say that you should just hire Mickey James, and you should hire a few other like female veterans, or even like Gail Kim, or like people who are real, or even like Awesome Kong, like people who have made like the women's roster really good in TNA wrestling. Maybe Scott D'Amore can join the company really, but the investment really needs to be in restructuring how they book things in AEW. And as I've said, my worry is that I think that it's really just Tony Khan doing all this, and he can't do long term, and he cannot just do that long term because honestly he's just showing instability, and I think that if he has too many jobs and he doesn't have the mentality to split the empire or have other people help him, and even listen to people who say, okay, well, what you're doing doesn't really work. We either have to alter it to make it better, or we have to throw it out and do something that works better. And he's not willing to listen to that. That's not good. And if he can't really distinguish between people who don't know how to book a show and don't know how to do things right, or you've given them a long-term chance with something and it's not been working, then he has to know how to let those people go. And if he can't do that, then he's not the right person. For example, like Kenny Omega is a very bad booker of the women's division. I think with Tony Storm, that was Tony Storm coming up with something. So a lot just if the wrestler figures something out for themselves, then that's actually when it stands out, really. So I do, but then also you do kind of see things like how Nyla Rose should have been the first AEW Women's Champion versus skinny 100-pound Rio. So it's not been working in the women's division. It could be a bigger deal in the women's division, but I really think that if he's giving people a chance for a long time and he's not replacing or getting rid of those people who are saying, okay, well, that's not being a draw, we need to have other bookers and stuff like that, really, so I think that's the issue. It's not really him stepping down, but really changing the people around him, and then also really just having better bookers. And then that's also good for these wrestlers as well, because they do want to retire, they do want to pass their wisdom, and they do want to mentor others and write good and do good storytelling. That's good for them, really. So that way they're not like hurting their bodies, but they still get a good check, really. So I just hope that's a decision that they make for the future. That would be best for AEW.